On a hot July afternoon in 2025, life in Damascus was proceeding as usual, with bustling markets and crowded streets. Suddenly the city was rocked by a powerful Israeli drone strike, shattering the relative calm. Israeli drones targeted the Syrian Ministry of Defense, the nerve center of Syria's military operations and strategic planning. The attack, rare for striking central Damascus, sent shockwaves through the city, leaving residents in disbelief and fear. Witnesses described drones circling overhead for several minutes before unleashing precise explosions that tore through the ministry's entrance. At least 3 people were killed, with several more injured, as emergency responders rushed to the scene amid chaos. For war-weary residents, it was a chilling reminder that peace remains elusive, and that violence can return at any moment. The new Syrian government, still fragile after years of civil war, now faces a direct and public challenge from Israel. Unlike previous Israeli strikes on remote military outposts, this bold move struck at the very heart of Syrian power in the capital. The Syrian military scrambled to repel the drones, firing anti-aircraft weapons into the sky, but ultimately failed to stop the attack. The world watched in real time, anxious about the implications for already tense Syria-Israel relations and the broader Middle East. The timing was critical. Syria's interim government is struggling to stabilize after Assad's fall, facing both internal and external threats. This attack deepens divisions within Syrian society and complicates efforts at national unity and reconciliation. The international community fears this could escalate into a wider regional conflict, threatening the fragile balance in the Middle East. Israel quickly justified the strike, presenting it as a necessary and urgent response to a rapidly escalating crisis on its northern border. Officials cited the need to protect the Druze minority in southern Syria, a community with deep historical roots and long-standing ties to Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Katz both declared that the attack was intended to defend Druze communities in Sweida, who found themselves caught in the crossfire of fierce fighting between Syrian government forces and their adversaries. Israel emphasized its close relationship with the Druze, highlighting that many Druze serve in the Israeli military and maintain family connections across the border, making the conflict deeply personal for many Israelis. Netanyahu addressed Israeli Druze directly, urging them not to cross into Syria despite their concerns, and promising that the Israeli army would do everything possible to protect their relatives and ensure their safety. The Druze in Israel, alarmed by reports from across the border, pressured the government to act decisively. Their calls for intervention were met with a swift and forceful response. But the move was also a clear warning to Syria's new government. Israel would not tolerate threats or instability near its border, especially when it comes to the safety of its own citizens and allies. The fighting in Sweida involved Syrian forces and their allied militias, whom Israel labeled as regime gangs, further escalating tensions in the already volatile region. By striking Damascus, Israel sent a powerful signal that it would hold Syria directly accountable for any violence or threats against the Druze, regardless of international criticism. The message was unmistakable. Israel's security interests and its enduring bond with the Druze are non-negotiable, and any threat to that relationship would be met with decisive action. This intervention was as much about asserting regional power and influence as it was about humanitarian concern for the Druze, reflecting the complex realities of Middle Eastern geopolitics. Israel's action set a new precedent for cross-border involvement, signaling a willingness to act unilaterally when its interests or allies are threatened. The world took notice, with international observers and media questioning Israel's true motives and the potential consequences for the region's fragile stability. The Druze are a unique religious and ethnic group in the Middle East, whose origins date back to the 11th century. Their community has survived centuries of upheaval, maintaining a distinct identity through both tradition and adaptation. They follow a secretive monotheistic faith that sets them apart from their neighbors, blending elements of Islam, Gnosticism, and other philosophies. Their beliefs are closely guarded, with only a select few initiated into the deeper mysteries of the faith. About 1 million Druze live in Syria, mostly in Sweida, a region often called the heartland of the Druze. Here, their traditions and language have flourished for generations. Another 150,000 are Israeli citizens living mainly in the north, where they are an integral part of society. Significant Druze communities also exist in Lebanon and the Golan Heights, creating a network that spans borders and political divides. Their loyalties are complex, citizens of their countries, but bound by deep cross-border family and cultural ties. Many Druze families are split by modern borders, yet remain united by shared heritage and frequent contact. In Israel, the Druze have a special status, serving in the military and enjoying full citizenship, a unique position among Arab minorities. Yet, some feel marginalized by recent laws and government policies, sparking protests and debates about their place in Israeli society. In the Golan Heights, most Druze still identify as Syrian, maintaining close ties with relatives in Sweida and often facing difficult choices about identity and loyalty. When violence erupts in Sweida, Druze across the region feel it personally, as news travels quickly through tight-knit family networks. The community's history with Israel is built on a decades-old pact of loyalty and mutual support, forged during times of conflict and cooperation alike. Yet tensions remain, especially when their identity and rights are challenged by shifting political landscapes or new legislation. The Druze are often caught between national allegiances and communal solidarity, navigating a delicate balance between integration and preservation. Their unique position makes them both a bridge and a flashpoint in regional conflicts, as they strive to mediate and maintain peace while protecting their own. The crisis in Sweida reignited these cross-border bonds and anxieties, reminding the Druze of their shared fate and vulnerability. For the Druze, every conflict in Syria is also a family crisis, echoing across borders and generations. Their fate is intertwined with the shifting politics of the region, making the Druze both witnesses to and participants in the ongoing story of the Middle East. The Israeli strike was triggered by brutal violence in Sweida, the Druze heartland. Local Druze militias clashed with Syrian government forces and allied Bedouin tribes, reigniting old rivalries. In just 4 days, nearly 600 people died, including many civilians. Reports emerged of field executions, deliberate killings of captured Druze. Desperate Druze spiritual leader Sheikh Hikmat al-Hajari publicly appealed for international help, even reaching out to Israel. Israel saw the violence as a direct threat to a community closely linked to its own citizens. The government decided to intervene, not with ground troops, but with a dramatic strike on Damascus. The goal forced Syria to halt the attacks in Sweida. The violence and the Druze leader's plea gave Israel both motive and justification. The world's attention turned to Sweida, amplifying the urgency for action. While Israel cited humanitarian reasons, many analysts saw deeper motives. The strike bolstered Netanyahu's image at home amid political turmoil. Israel also aimed to shape post-Assad Syria, wary of a new Islamist-led government on its border. By hitting Damascus, Israel warned against any hostile power rising in southern Syria. The intervention reinforced Israel's demand for a demilitarized buffer zone. It also shifted attention from ongoing conflicts elsewhere, like Gaza. Critics called it opportunism, using the Druze crisis to advance Israel's strategic interests. The move was both a show of strength and a calculated gamble in a volatile region. Syria's interim president Ahmed al-Sharaa condemned the Israeli attack, accusing Israel of exploiting Syria's instability. He insisted the Druze are an integral part of Syria and promised to investigate the violence in Sweida. The government's message, Syria, not Israel, is the true protector of its minorities. Syrian air defenses failed to stop the Israeli drones, highlighting Israel's military edge. Direct confrontation with Israel was not an option, so Syria turned to diplomatic channels denouncing the strike at the UN. Under international pressure, Syria agreed to a ceasefire in Sweida and began withdrawing forces. The move signaled that Israeli and global pressure had worked, at least temporarily. The government hoped to regain Druze trust and avoid further escalation. The ceasefire was a tactical retreat, not a resolution. The region remained tense, with the risk of renewed violence ever present. The conflict devastated ordinary lives in Sweida and Damascus. Families fled their homes, towns became battlegrounds, and basic necessities grew scarce. The violence tore apart communities, turning neighbors into enemies and leaving deep scars. Reports of executions traumatized the Druze, with families losing loved ones to brutality. In Damascus, the airstrike shattered any sense of safety, disrupting daily life and the economy. Fear of more attacks paralyzed the city. In Israel and the Golan Heights, Druze families watched helplessly as relatives faced danger. Some young Druze even tried to cross the border to help, only to be stopped by Israeli forces. The crisis exposed the pain of divided families and the limits of cross-border solidarity. For many, the trauma and loss will linger long after the fighting stops. The conflict's human cost is measured in broken families and shattered trust. Healing will take years, if it comes at all. On July 16, 2025, a ceasefire was brokered in Sweida with help from the U.S., Turkey, and Arab states. All sides agreed to halt fighting, bringing relief to exhausted civilians. The Syrian government withdrew its forces, a major concession to Druze demands. The ceasefire was seen as a victory for the Druze, who had defended their land and forced a government retreat. Israel's intervention and international pressure were key to this outcome. For now, the threat of massacre faded and a fragile calm returned. But the peace is precarious. Deep-rooted tensions remain unresolved. The ceasefire is only a pause, not a solution. Questions linger over control of southern Syria and the government's relationship with minorities. The people of Sweida are wary, knowing peace could collapse at any moment. The world watches, hoping this fragile truce will hold. The future of Sweida and the region remains uncertain. The events of July 2025 have left Syria, Israel, and the Druze at a crossroads. The ceasefire stopped the bloodshed, but the path ahead is fraught with challenges. Syria's interim government must win trust and prevent further rebellions, especially among minorities. Israel's intervention set a precedent. Future involvement is now on the table. The Druze, empowered but divided, must decide between autonomy and integration with Damascus. Regional alliances may shift, increasing instability. Real peace will require dialogue, compromise, and international mediation. The U.S. and regional powers will play a crucial role in shaping outcomes. Without a lasting political solution, the risk of renewed violence remains high. The people of Syria and the Middle East face an uncertain, fragile future. The world holds its breath, hoping for peace but bracing for more conflict.